In this video, I'm going to talk through the first project for Module 2, which is basically a audio recording of yourself explaining the digital signal path and demonstrating some basic tape editing techniques within a DAW to enhance it. And so it's like a remix for you to submit to D2L. So the first step is for you to use a smartphone or other digital recording device that is accessible to you. The smartphone is probably the most ubiquitous one. They all have a audio recording feature in them somewhere. Mine's called a voice memos function. It's an app that came with my phone, nothing special. And it's enough to record a digital audio file of yourself speaking. And so the idea is that you are demonstrating your awareness of the conversion of any sound from acoustic energy into analog electrical energy, and then analog electrical energy into the digital realm, which is our new focus. So you will then describe the signal path from your voice to the input transducer on your phone, to the analog to digital converter that's inside your phone, to the audio file that's in your phone. And then when you press play, you're also describing how it goes from data block to a digital to analog converter. And then that goes out the speaker, and then the speaker converts it from analog electric to acoustic. So that signal path is something you will narrate. And that comes from the notes and lecture video that is on D2L. And then, so once you have that recorded, you will then export your audio file to something to share it to. I would recommend your email. You can easily email it to yourself. It should be small enough to email. If not, you can upload it to a cloud storage service like Google Drive or something to that effect. And then go into the lab and use GarageBand use a computer in the lab to download that file and import it into GarageBand. And I'll show that process in a second. But the point of this project is to demonstrate that you know the conversion of energy from analog to digital, but also how to do basic editing techniques in a DAW. And we addressed this a little bit in our alphabet soup assignment from a few weeks ago, but we are talking about the importance of these basic editing techniques. The transport function, setting your I/O settings, getting audio into the DAW, and then doing some basic tape editing. We call these tape editing techniques cut, copy, paste, split, splice, and loop, reverse, transpose. All those things are products of an era of tape editing that comes from an analog realm. And we also can think about the use of solo, mute, record, enable, pan, and output track functions. And these are all derived from the analog tape editing that was a part of the 20th century. And I have this image here of Bibi and Louis Barron from their recording studio and composition studio in New York. They made the sci-fi soundtrack for Forbidden Planet in this studio. And you'll notice that there's just analog gear everywhere. There's a movie projector here. They have all this old equipment, but these tape machines are really the crux of their editing capacity. So in a studio like this, you would make a recording onto an analog tape, and then you would take that tape and literally slice it with a razor blade and cut out things you don't want, and then splice that recording to another recording to basically make it progress from one to the next. And it was a long and arduous process that was just assumed to be a part of the job. And so their efforts in this kind of chaotic looking studio are important to note. It's just important to know the origins of these sorts of techniques. So basically, we're using a DAW to do this, but back in the day, you had to use a splicing block to take the tape off the tape heads and put into this device that allowed you to slice it at two different angles, kind of like a miter box for a saw. It's similar to that, but with razor blade basically grooves to guide your blade so that you're cutting it at the proper angle, so that when you literally tape them back together, they meet back up. So what we're doing is this, but so much easier because we're using a digital audio workstation. With a digital file, we don't need to worry about all this analog tape. We have that recording up there on our screen, and we can simply splice it with a key command and move it around and change it at the blink of an eye. And we can even undo anything with a command Z, which is amazing. So, so our assignment is to import the MP3 of your voice explaining the digital signal path into the DAW. You're going to use these basic tape editing functions, cut, copy, paste, loop, and reverse, to rearrange some words and make them sound interesting. You're going to need to be able to understand the original narration track as well as your experiments. So it's going to sound like two things happening at once, almost like a sci-fi experimental soundtrack. You will create a new second audio track to place their sounds into and rearrange accordingly. And then you're going to export all of this as one MP3 file and upload that to D2L. So here's a list of the functions that we're going to be using in GarageBand. And I mentioned this in passing while we're demonstrating this in class, but I just wanted to list them here so that you're aware of the list of things that we are now using in GarageBand. And we can come back to that in a minute. But our example here is an audio file that I recorded of myself narrating the audio path from acoustic to electric analog to digital and back again. And you can hear
event, and it is
that there are sounds associated with these waveforms that I can isolate. So let's say I want to take this off the tape. So basically I hit Command T to split it. And again, I'll go back over here to my list of commands. We're going to Command T to split region. And then I'm going to use my Command C, X, or V to cut, copy, or paste that into the other track. So I'm going to take this here, split it off. I'm going to use Command C to copy, and then I'm going to place it down here in the second track. Notice I had to select the second track to put it there, okay? So if you're having trouble, note that you have to select your region in order to perform these functions upon it. That has to be highlighted. If we highlight our region and look at the way that our cursor changes, you'll see that the cursor will change shape according to where we place it in the edge of our region. So this is the loop and trim functions. Let me go back over here. So mouse cursor over region, that will show you the loop or trim functions of that region. So I can take this trim and make it smaller by clicking and dragging. I can click and drag here too to make this smaller. And then I can loop it by clicking and dragging with the loop function engaged. It's so easy to make a loop in this environment. So we're going to solo it just for the time being.
Vent.
And we get a loop of that word. That sounds kind of weird. Other things that you can do are reverse and transpose. So those things are kind of exclusive to each other. And so those things are going to be in the audio editor window. So if you hit the E key, just simply the E key, no command or anything, just E, this audio editor will appear at the bottom. It's also engaged by clicking the scissors button up here. That's where reverse and transpose are. And you can, if you click the follow tempo and pitch, you can transpose your sound to be lower. Make it sound higher. Oops. Okay, so that's where you can transpose things. And it seems to be that you cannot reverse and transpose at the same time. So let's try reverse instead. So you can experiment with different types of audio editing here, but I encourage you to definitely use reverse and transpose down here. Again, that is engaged by pressing the E key, which will open up this menu down here. And that's how you get to reverse and transpose. Okay. Lastly, you can automate certain things in your DAW like volume and panning. And Automation just basically means that you're allowing the program to change functions over time. It's almost like you're programming it, but it's really easy. You just hit the A key. You hit the A key, and it'll open up this overlay of lines. And you select the function that you want to automate. So volume and pan are the most common. So volume, if I automate the volume, you create these breakpoints on the yellow line, and you can fade in and out your volume in this way. Notice that this is sliding up and down as you go. Okay. Additionally, you can pan. You can automate panning. If you select the line and make the green line is panning, so I'm going to go left and then back right and so on and so forth. So that way you can make it move. All these things are moving at the same time, your volume and your panning. Right? And they reflect those automation changes. So once you're done having fun with these editing techniques and automation, you're going to make sure that you can hear both of those layers at the same time. The A key will toggle that view on and off.
Event, and it is turning that microphone is
so this is kind of what we're after, is we're looking for
put producer on my cell phone, which is changing my voice from an acoustic event, and it is turning that microphone.
So throughout your recording, just experiment with different ways of editing your audio and making it sound interesting and weird. And then when you get what you like, you're done. You can go to Share, Export Song to Disk, change your file name so it doesn't have all these strange characters in it. Last name and mod2, assign 1. And then you're going to save it as an MP3, hit export. And in your GarageBand folder, which I'm actually not sure where that is, so I'm going to go through that process again. Export song to disk. I want to put it on my desktop. Oh, it's in my music folder. Okay, well, I'm going to put it in my desktop. I'm going to name it my last name, mod2, assignment 1, export. And you go to the desktop and you find your file and you find your mod2.1, and then you audition it.
This is a test example of what a microphone is, which is
listen to it and make sure it sounds like you want it to. And also make sure your metronome's not on or other annoying things. And then you upload it to the Dropbox. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can get the information on what you're to narrate. Basically, it's the signal path for the digital realm, and that is in our notes for this week.